You finish someone's sentence in your head before they're halfway through it. You already know the ending. You already see the three problems with the conclusion they haven't reached yet. And you sit there, nodding, waiting, trying to look present while your brain is three conversations ahead. That's not rudeness. That's not arrogance. That's Tuesday. And if that feels familiar, if reading that just made something in your chest tighten a little, then this video was made specifically for you. Because here's the thing, high intelligence is almost universally treated as a gift with no fine print. Faster thinking, better problem solving, broader comprehension. What nobody mentions is the cost. The very same wiring that makes a brain capable of processing complexity at speed is also the wiring that makes ordinary life feel like wearing clothes that never quite fit. Today we're going through 9 of those struggles, not to complain, not to make anyone feel special or tragic, but because understanding why your brain does what it does is the only way to stop fighting it. If this already sounds like your experience, subscribe. This channel exists for people who want to understand themselves. Actually understand, not just feel better for 5 minutes. Let's start with the one nobody admits out loud. The first struggle is boredom that turns physical, not the bored you get waiting for a bus. Real, grinding, almost painful understimulation. Research from the University of Kentucky found that high IQ individuals have a significantly lower tolerance for monotony. Their brains require more cognitive input just to reach baseline engagement. Think about that. The brain that other people admire for its speed literally cannot idle comfortably. It needs to be running something, and when it isn't, when the meeting is pointless, when the task is repetitive, when the conversation is going nowhere, it doesn't quietly wait. It starts generating its own stimulation. You drift. You catastrophize about something unrelated. You start mentally redesigning the room. You've been called distracted your entire life for something that was actually your brain desperately trying to stay alive. The second struggle follows directly from the first, the curse of the unfinished project. And here's what's interesting. High IQ individuals show a well-documented pattern of explosive initial engagement, followed by rapid disengagement once the intellectual challenge is solved. Psychologists call this the novelty drive. The brain responds to new problems the way some people respond to sugar, an intense rush, then a crash once the thing is figured out. The project that consumed you for 2 weeks suddenly feels hollow, not because you're lazy, because the interesting part, the puzzle, is over. And your brain doesn't particularly care about the execution, it cares about the discovery. Which is why so many highly intelligent people have hard drives full of half-finished things, and a quiet private shame about it that nobody else would understand. The third struggle is the one that damages relationships the most, seeing the ending before everyone else does. This one is genuinely hard to live with. You're watching a situation unfold, a business decision, a relationship dynamic, a group plan, and you can already see where it's going. Not because you're pessimistic, because you've run the variables and the outcome is fairly obvious. And here's the kicker. You say something, or you don't say something. Either way, it goes badly. If you speak up, you're told you're overthinking, you're being negative, nobody asked. If you stay quiet, you watch the thing collapse exactly the way you predicted. And you feel a strange combination of vindicated and exhausted that you don't dare show anyone. There is no good option. The pattern recognition that makes high IQ thinking valuable in some rooms makes it socially punishing in others. The fourth struggle is about sleep, and it's more neurological than most people realize. High IQ individuals report significantly higher rates of difficulty switching off at night. And this isn't anxiety in the clinical sense. It's that the brain, accustomed to constant processing, doesn't have a natural off switch. A 2017 study published in the journal Sleep found that higher cognitive ability was associated with increased nighttime rumination and delayed sleep onset. Your brain mistakes unsolved problems for emergencies. The prefrontal cortex keeps running simulations. What if? What about? What did that actually mean? Because that's its job, and it's very, very good at its job. The problem is, it doesn't clock out. The fifth struggle is one that looks like a personality flaw from the outside, the impossibility of small talk. And before the comment section says it, this isn't about being superior to anyone. It's neurological. Small talk operates on social lubrication. It's low stakes, low depth, low effort verbal exchange that most people find perfectly comfortable. High IQ brains process conversation differently. They're constantly scanning for substance, for new information, for a problem worth engaging with. Small talk offers none of that. So the brain either disengages entirely, you become awkward, flat, visibly absent, or it overcorrects and you say something 3 levels deeper than the moment called for and watch the other person's face do something uncomfortable. Neither version feels good. And after enough of those interactions, many highly intelligent people quietly stop trying in group settings altogether, which then gets read as coldness or, worse, arrogance, when it's actually something much closer to exhaustion. The sixth struggle is the dark side of high standards. Here's where it gets genuinely uncomfortable. Psychologists who study perfectionism in high IQ populations consistently find that the same capacity that allows someone to identify the ideal version of something also makes it nearly impossible to be satisfied with any real version of that thing. You can see exactly how good something could be, which means you can always see exactly how far short the current version falls. That applies to work, it applies to relationships, and it applies to yourself. The internal critic in a high IQ brain isn't just loud, it's precise. It doesn't just say, this isn't good enough. It says specifically, technically, in detail, exactly what's wrong and why. Living with that voice is not the same as being motivated by it. Often, it's the opposite. The seventh struggle is one that takes years to even name. The loneliness of being misunderstood at the level of your thinking. Not misunderstood emotionally. Most people experience that. But misunderstood cognitively. You make a connection between two ideas, and the room goes quiet in a way that tells you no one followed the jump. You explain your reasoning and watch someone nod in a way that means they've stopped listening, not that they understand. You find yourself constantly translating yourself, simplifying, slowing down, starting over. And after a while, you stop bothering. You show up to conversations already edited, already smaller. And the strange grief of that is something you almost never talk about. Because how do you say, I'm lonely because no one thinks the way I do, without sounding like exactly the kind of person no one wants to be around? The eighth struggle is the one that masquerades as indecision, knowing too much to choose easily. This one is backed hard by research. Barry Schwartz, psychologist at Swarthmore College, documented what he called the paradox of choice, the idea that more options produce more anxiety, not more freedom. High IQ individuals are particularly vulnerable to this because they don't just see the options. They see the implications of each option, the second and third order consequences, the variables that could shift everything, the ways the ideal choice depends on information they don't have. A decision that takes someone else 30 seconds can take a high IQ brain 3 weeks. Not because they're unsure of what they want, because they understand too clearly what could go wrong. And the cruel irony is that this thoroughness, this exact trait that looks like intelligence in other contexts, gets mistaken for weakness in this one. The ninth struggle is the quietest one. It's the one that lives underneath all the others, and most people with high IQ carry it for decades without ever naming it directly. It's the feeling of being a foreigner in ordinary life, not better than it, not above it, just not quite native to it. The things that seem to sustain most people, small rituals, social routines, uncomplicated pleasures, are available to you, technically. You can do them. You just notice that they don't quite hit the same. You feel the gap between what something is and what you thought it would feel like, and you stop being sure whether that gap means something is wrong with the world or something is wrong with you. Let's be honest about something. Every single one of these struggles is a friction point between a particular kind of brain and a world that wasn't quite designed for it. That doesn't make high intelligence a curse. It doesn't make it a gift either, not in any simple sense. It makes it a set of parameters, a specific neurological profile that comes with specific advantages and specific costs, the way every profile does. The problem was never your intelligence. The problem was the story you were told about it. That it was supposed to make things easier, that it was supposed to be simple and good and clean. Nobody told you it would also mean boredom that hurts, projects you can't finish, conversations you can't survive, and a perfectionism so precise it could take down anything you've ever built. But here's what's actually true. The same brain that makes you restless makes you rare. The same wiring that exhausts you in a pointless meeting is the wiring that solves things other people can't see. The same precision that makes your internal critic cruel is the precision that makes your best work genuinely extraordinary. You don't need to fix your brain. You need to understand it well enough to stop fighting it in the wrong places. And that's a completely different project.